Well, let's get to the details now. In less than 24 hours, President Akufo-Addo will open his doors to the Ghanaian media for scrutiny. It will be his first media interaction since he assumed office 6 months ago. Expect issues such as the security, especially a surge in gun violence, the Delta Force, forceful takeovers, etc., 3% VAT rate confusion, and the government's handling of the Major Adam Mahama murder, the depreciation of the city, and energy situation. There'll be live coverage here, plus interaction with you on this matter. In the studio with me is our presidential affairs correspondent, Elton Brobick, to help us understand the structure of tomorrow's media interaction. Elton, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so this is not new. I mean, we have seen President Mills do it. We've seen President Mahama do it as well. Is there going to be anything different with this case?
No, it's not going to be anything different. I mean, the only difference is that this is happening within the first 6 months of the Akufo administration. Usually, it comes after the first year where you are able to account to the people what you've done. But what we are being told is that President Akufo-Addo wants to engage more with the Ghanaian media, through the Ghanaian media. So that's how come he's invited some selected journalists to be at the banquet hall of the State House tomorrow, 12:30. You know, to ask him all the questions that they want to ask. All the questions
that they have. Yeah. What's the structure like? You get to the Flagstaff House and then you get to ask your questions, or some selected people are going to get the opportunity to ask their questions?
What I've picked is that they've already sent out invitations to those they want to be at the program tomorrow.
Those they want to be at the program tomorrow?
Well, I have to put it that way because they've selected some media personnel to be on the program tomorrow. Right. So if you don't have an invitation now, it means that you are left out. Right. So that is information we have picked. So we have almost, what I know is that about 30 journalists and media practitioners will participate in tomorrow's program at the State House, not at the Flagstaff House, State House, the banquet hall of the State House. Yeah, right within the premises of Parliament. Okay,
so there's going to be one event at the Flagstaff House?
No, and everything is taking place instead of the Flagstaff House,
and not the Flagstaff
because
House.
of the numbers. They've moved everything from the Flagstaff House.
Oh, the numbers
to the banquet hall of the State House.
What's the number? Do we know how many people are they expecting?
From what I've seen, the invitation went out to almost 40 journalists and media practitioners. And
well, that the Flagstaff House should be able to handle that number so easily.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they have other things they want to do. So apart from the 40, they also have people who report from the presidency. They are also
including yourself.
Yes, yeah. So so basically we're looking at almost 50 people at the banquet hall tomorrow.
Will there be any restrictions, or people are allowed to ask questions? I mean, we've highlighted the areas, the possible areas. I mean, the areas that, of course, cannot escape any of the people who are selected to be there. Of course, we're talking about security, what happened with the Delta forces and all of the forces. We're talking about the economy, etc. What else are we expected to hear?
Well, from what I've picked, the president's prepared for every question. Because we are looking at what has happened from January 7th up to now. So we are looking at Delta Force, Invincible Forces. We are looking at the Chinese joint venture, or is it a loan? We are looking at the Euro bond, the general insecurity people feel in the country. So every question is not off limits from what I've been told. And that the president is ready to answer, to respond to all the questions that may come up tomorrow at the program. What I've told is that he will give a formal presentation of what is done from January 7 up to now, the achievements that the government has showed, and then allow the media to respond or to ask questions that they may find necessary on behalf of the Ghanaian people tomorrow. Okay,
so we're looking at a selection of both private, public, pro-NPP, pro-NDC media. Do we have those
Absolutely.
details?
The list I saw included people like our own Israelai, Evans Mensah, Kojo Jansen, Kaba, Kwame Sefakai, hosts of talk shows. We also have Kwaku Bakom, I mean his category of journalists, Kwesi Pratt, and those individuals. And we also have people who are in the media generally. I think that the invitation was specifically to people that are on their list, not to the media house to decide who to come. But they specifically mentioned those, they want them to be at the event tomorrow. So public, private, I mean, everybody, pro.
So what should we expect from you as a presidential correspondent?
Well, I have my own question. Yesterday, I had a discussion with a graduate from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. He's been home for 5 years since he got out of school. Now, this person tells me that he's even contemplating suicide because it's been very difficult for him to, put body and soul together because of his joblessness. And I think he speaks for several of such people in our system. The president himself told.
I mean, this week he's been on the youth unemployment ride.
Last week when he launched that entrepreneurship program, he said that the biggest challenge facing the government is a huge unemployment situation we have in the country. If they are able to deal with it, it may be, you know, a national security issue. So it is an issue before government, and it's an issue for many young people out there who are looking forward to government to create a space for them to be employed. And I think it is something that a lot of people will look forward to.
Very well, then we hope to hear your question tomorrow. Elton Brobe is our presidential affairs correspondent, and tomorrow he will be at not at the Flagstaff House, we know, at the State House, to bring you all of those. Well, you can bring in your own question. The hashtag is Ask Nana. That's JoyNews' hashtag on that particular program, Ask Nana. So why don't you just log on to our Facebook page and drop your question there. Some way, somehow, like we said, we'll get your answers some way, somehow. Well, let's go on Facebook and read to you some of the comments and some of the questions that you've just dropped so far. And all right, there you go. So we have our question to be President Akufo-Addo will be engaging the media, of course, that you know, as part of measures to mark his government 6 month in office at 12:30 p.m. So we've asked you to put your questions there, put your comments there, and I can read through some of the questions there for you. All right, we'll bring you that question later. Well, let's move on with some other stories now. A former Deputy National Coordinator of the National Youth Employment Program, James Adongo, has today mounted a strong defense for his former boss, who is standing trial with another person for causing financial loss to the state, insisting the final approval for the payment of 4.1 million cedis was given by then Minister of Youth and Sports Clement Kofi-Humado. The former NYEP National Coordinator Abuga Pele is alleged to have recommended the said payment, with the businessman Philip Asibit accused of putting in false claims when no work was done for the state. JoyNews' Joseph Akabley was in court and now reports.
Former Deputy National Coordinator of the NYEP was brought in as a witness for the businessman, Mr. Philip Asibit. Now, he is accused of putting in a false claim. Now, in his testimony to the court, James Adongo insisted that the then Minister for Youth and Sports, Mr. Clement Kofi-Humado, was involved at each stage of the payment process. His testimony essentially focused on two main things. First, explain to the court the checks and balances that existed at the time he was at office, and also telling the court about how the former minister was involved. He insisted that when a user agency puts in a request for such a payment to be made, it starts from the level of the NYEP, where first a monitoring team takes a look at that request. It goes over to the management level, after which approval is given. Then the national coordinator makes a recommendation to the ministry for the payment. Now, even when that recommendation is made, it is not effected immediately, as the ministry also has its own checks and balances in place. It starts from the level of its audit team. It rises through to levels that involves the minister and its monitoring team at that level, after which approval is given before that will be communicated to the NYEP for payment to be made. He again explained that even after that payment has been made with a check issued, when a user agency goes over to the bank to request for the said payment, that is not effected until the NYEP again writes to the bank, authorizing the bank to make the said payment. His testimony was in sharp contrast to that given by the then Minister Clement Kofi-Humado when he appeared before the court. He had told the court that he solely relied on the advice given by the National Coordinator, Mr. Abuga Pele, in allowing that payment to be made. But the lawyer for the businessman, addressing the press at the close of proceedings, insisted they will be demonstrating before the court that indeed the client worked and was paid duly for that.
My client, who is the first accused person, denies that he ever used false pretenses to take money from the Ghana government. On the contrary, he delivered services and was paid for. And that's the end of the matter. And of course, at the trial, that's what we're seeking to do. At a trial, that he provided consultancy services and he finished the work that he was hired to do, and he was paid, and the money that he took it for work done. And there is no stealing, no defrauding by false pretenses, no criminality involved. It's as simple as that. But it is only at the end of this case that the judge will determine whether we succeeded in our defense or not. So,
hearing of the matter continues on July 18 where Mr. James Adongo, the former Deputy National Coordinator of the National Youth Employment Program, will continue with his testimony to the court. For Joy News, Joseph Akable, Law Court Complex.
So watching the Pulse with me, Gifty and Opie. I'm going to take a very quick break. When we return, we take you to Liberia, where in less than 80 days we'll be going to the polls. But it appears to be that about 25 people want to take the seat from that one of very few female heads of state. We'll tell you all of that. We have an exclusive interview with the Vice President of the country who also wants to be president. Please stay.